Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Thursday. It's February 13th. This will be our chart lesson for today, and this will wrap it up for the week. No chart lessons on Friday, so um, another quick week. Already halfway through the month again. Time just keeps flying by, but time flies when you're having fun. That's the way I like to look at it anyway. So um, another good trading day. Notice that we had a leg up, a correction, leg up. We didn't get our two legs. Actually, you did, but this is not much of a leg here. You got a big leg down, a leg up, and then another semi-leg down. So you could really look at that as two legs as a correction. But um, what I would do is I would measure this first leg. And once we went higher here, you had to assume where we were headed here. We went a little higher, of course, but as you can see, but this was the target all along. And didn't, when we were right in here early this morning, you can't assume that's where we're going, but that's if we start pushing higher, that's probably going to be your most likely place. And you can see that target. That gets you right in the vicinity. We went just a tad higher, but most of that resistance came in right at that spot. It's uncanny how well this stuff works, but it does, so you need to know about it. But this is another one of those days where you got a nice trade early on and you could have just been done quick today. But anyway, we're going to back out. We're going to talk about all the trades and we'll go from there. And actually, let me back out into the bigger picture. In the big picture today, this was still a range day. It's just such a big range that we spent all day really trending up. We had two legs down, you had a leg, and a little double correction, and another leg down, and then you had two legs up. And but notice we traded 90% of the day inside the overnight highs and lows. That's a range day, but this is such a wide range that you don't really want to look at it that way. This thing trended up all day. You want to stay with the trend pretty much. There's a few shorts in here, but for the most part, you were looking for longs today. Just trying to back out here where it's a little easier to see. Okay, 7 o'clock came right in here somewhere on this move up into this little area right in here. And we're trending up here. We're making higher highs and higher lows. And notice what happens here. You got a low and you get a first entry and you get a second entry that fails. And it's right at the midline of this two-tiered channel. And a nice bullish bar. I like going long there. It's not a perfect setup because you got to go long right into those highs. But really you made a low and you tested it multiple times across here. And you got that failure and it's all riding up that midline. So you may want to take that trade. I'd probably wait on a better one that early and just see what comes along. But, if you want to be aggressive and that trade fits a lot of our criteria, so I did mark it green. But notice what happens. We trade a little higher and you come down first entry and then you come down. You get two measured legs back to this trend line. It confirms it. A nice little perfect reversal type signal bar there, and you go long right there, and that's, look how quick that shoots up and just keeps going higher. And if you catch that one trade, that's probably all you need for the day. But we move on up here, we come back, you get another first entry, and then you get another second entry long right there. This is a double top, so that's a new high. First entry, second entry. Normally I'd tell you want to wait for this to come back to the trend line, but we already had a low there and we just retested it. And with it being a second entry and a strong trend, you're probably going to get a scalp out of that. Now, actually, we make a higher low here and you get a double test of that level. So if you didn't already go long, if you waited, you definitely want to go long here. Notice how it took on off. Of course, we did find resistance up here. Again, normally I wouldn't mark a short here, but notice we made that double top and that's a third touch. It's a little small bar, maybe 3 or 4 ticks, a little bit away from the EMA. And it is a second entry short. Notice that new low, first entry, second entry. So I like that trade. We do come back and bounce again here. This is looking like a range, but at this point we're so close to this trend line, I'd probably just wait. That's not a perfect signal bar. It's not a bad signal bar either, and there is a double test. You probably could argue for it to be green, but I would have, there's too big a chance this ticks higher and comes on back down and maybe gets a little failed breakout or something by this point. So I'd skip that trade, but you could argue for it to be green. Then of course we run up, we make a high, and then we make a lower high, and it doesn't break higher. Actually, your short is right here. I'm sorry. Uh, you actually didn't break higher, but it's just a failed breakout. And technically, this is your signal bar. But I like going short right there just because you got enough room at the top of that failed breakout to get back to the trend line. And you don't know that it's going to take off like this. You're just trying to get back to the trend line. And the only reason there are any shorts again marked here is because this is a trading range. And you can see this one, but I'd wait and go short below that. But this is really your signal bar, so your buy stop or your safety stop has to go above that bar right there. And what you might do is let it break lower and then drop your limit order back one tick below that original bar. And just all you're trying to do is get a scalp on the move back. And you can see the midline acting as resistance there, and you can see the failed breakout. And so for those reasons, I like that trade. You might argue this to be green because this is technically your signal bar, but this is a trading range across here, and we've been in it for, I mean, it really started right in here about 8:35. And by the time you get here, it's almost 9. So, we've been in this thing for 30 minutes here. So we still haven't come back to the trend line. So we're overdue. So on this failure here, they'll probably run it down to the trend line. Of course, they end up running this thing all the way down. So um, that's what we're looking at there. There's a lower high here and here, but you're just so far away from the EMA that you just can't risk those, especially when this has been an uptrend, because there's a good chance we're going to try to make a retest at that high at some point. You get a higher low right here. Notice how you run down and finally you come back and you kind of shoot through the EMA and pull back. But I'd wait on the true reversal and you don't really get it. It just kind of takes off there. And then we're just going sideways. Stay out of this. There's not enough room in there to scalp out either way. Finally, you get a chance here down at the very lows. And and this is a higher low too. You made this low and then you make a double bottom, which is basically a higher low. We treat that like a higher low. And there are two legs down there. It's hidden, but there's two legs down there. But still, what you got to do is just make sure there's enough room to get out before you get back to this high. So you may let this break higher and use a limit order. And you could have got filled at least two or three ticks back in this bar, at least two. And that way you get an extra tick or two to get out. Didn't matter. This thing takes off. And I would probably try to hold a runner here. Anytime you get those failed breakouts, even here you might. I probably wouldn't have held a runner on this one because of the trend line. But you might have considered it just in case. But this was a real surprise that it did this. Didn't surprise me that we came back to the trend line right there. But it did, or even to right here. But it surprised me that we fell like that. But all the longs suddenly had to exit because the market's going the opposite direction. But on these failures, a lot of times, especially, they turn out to be important highs or lows. And you can see this turned out to be a very important low of the day. Not the low of the day, but an important low during the day. Because we never even came close to that again. It was all uphill from there. We move up. It's too far away from the EMA and too late in the move here. And then notice what happens. You come back first entry and you pull back another second entry long. It's not a perfect signal bar, but it's good enough on that second entry right off the EMA after that big move up. And it's really a repeat pattern similar to that one right there. And you can see it. It looks very similar to that one. This one's still above the EMA. but this one basically is too. We never really pushed through that EMA, but it's a repeat pattern, and I like it. So we run on up, and then we come back. We work back to the trend line. This one's still iffy because you got that trend working down. You're not quite back to the EMA, or I'm sorry, back to the trend line. But you push up, pull back, and make a double bottom, which is a higher low. And this actually breaks lower here first and then turns and goes out the other side. Go long right there. Either go long when it goes out the other one tick above the red bar when it comes back through, or wait till it closes and put a buy stop. You can do either there. That's the key entry point, and that's going to be a good entry. And this is a second entry long right here too, because this technically you got a little 2-bar matching high and that breaks higher, so that's really a new higher low, and you're coming down first entry, and then you come down in a second entry. So you could look at that as a second entry too. Then we run up here, and again we're just kind of going sideways, and you finally get another bounce right here off the key entry point, off the support. Notice you that bar right there, and you test it once, you test it twice. There's really 2 legs back here. There's 2 legs in that first leg, and then a little correction, and another leg. I mean, you can still see it as 2 legs back. It's not a perfect second entry, but if you went to a larger chart, it might be a second entry. But regardless, because of the range, the double test, the key entry point, the EMA, you got all that support right there, and you're getting a chance to get in a little lower here, and you got just enough to get out of that. What you want to do is when it breaks higher, drop a limit order, maybe a tick or 2 back, and again, you could have gotten filled 2 or 3 or 4 ticks back in this. The key is you just have to have enough room to get out before those highs. You know, if there's plenty of room, you don't worry about it. Or, you know, if it's a really strong trend, you may not worry about it. But that's some strong resistance right there. And the other thing is, this was probably our target right here, this overnight high. So you got to be concerned about that too, because we have reached that point. So it wouldn't surprise me to get a break here. But this has been a long trend, so we'll probably retest that high, which we did. But just make sure you got enough room. This one's close to being green. If you don't have enough room to get out there, then by all means it's green. So just keep that in mind. In this case, there's enough room. You would have had enough room to get out of that one, even though it turned back down. But notice exactly what it did. It turned down right at that spot, at that resistance spot. So if you didn't have enough room to scalp out, you would have had a loser there. So just make sure you either got enough room, or you do like I talked about, you let it break higher and drop a limit order and try to get a little better entry. But again, we get a couple of legs back down. And also once you start going lower, you know, make sure that you measure that first part of the trend channel and you look for a measured move, which we got. And we get that little failed break lower right there and a nice bullish green bar. It's not a perfect setup, but if you saw this little trading range and then the equal move and then the dropout, you're a little bit away from the EMA. You're probably going to snap back. Again, you don't know that it's going to take off like that, but you're just trying to get a scalp out of it. And with it being a failed break lower, just like down here, it might turn out to be an important low, which it does. Look at it go. I mean, that one trade right there give you multiple points. If you enter there, let's just say you were in at 33.75. Well, this ran all the way to, that's about an 8 to 9 point. You could have easily gotten 7 or 8 points out of that. And that's not getting all of that move. So keep that in mind. But now you got a break of the 2-tiered channel. You got a new high, and now you're making lower highs here. Notice that new high, first entry. There's really a second entry long there, but you don't want to, it's too early to be trying to look for a reversal like that. But when it goes up again, and you really got you made that high, you test it once, you test it twice, plus there's little 2 legs back. We're kind of going sideways. There's enough room to get out here. You probably want to take that short right there. Comes back, not enough room on that one. Comes back here. If you've got enough room here, you might consider this one. I didn't mark it because I didn't really like the fact that it's right into the EMA there. We've already had the break in the new high, so we could be starting to trend down. I felt like it was better to wait. Again, that's one you could argue it could at least be green. But being this late in the day, I want a little better setup. Of course, we do run up and we have a little failed break higher. And like just like on the low side, that could turn out to be an important high. And guess what? You could have ridden this down all the way to 33.71 or so and still got out well before 3 o'clock and made all those points on one move. So remember those breakouts. I talk about those a lot, and most people are scared to trade them, but man, they pay off big time. Um, so you just got to be careful in these congestion areas. Just like this one, you're better off to stay out until you get some kind of trap with a almost a sure thing there, because you get a higher low with plenty of room to get out. And most of these, it doesn't matter where it's at, there's not going to be room to get out. But because this is a failure to the downside that makes a double bottom and a higher low, then that gives you a little more. That's a little more encouraging that we're probably going to go further. You don't expect it to do this, but you do expect it to run up and maybe fail out the other side, or plus it didn't really surprise me that we went higher. It just surprising that it took off so quickly and so strongly. But you had to assume we're going to try to maybe fill that gap today. This big move tonight, I think, filled the gap from a couple of days ago. Yeah, there it is. We filled that one. And there might have been another one down there somewhere. But anyway, we did fill the gap from last couple of days that didn't get filled. So we might can easily go higher now. So because the market just doesn't like to leave those big gaps on the chart. It's very rarely that they stay. So anyway, it was a pretty good trading day. Again, just be careful on the shorts on these kind of days. Here it wasn't such a big deal because it's still looking like a range day. This is right in the middle of the range and we're going sideways. Once you got up in here, we're working on another leg up and the target's way up here. So you got to be careful. But once you hit that target and this trend line the trend line had played out with the break and a couple of moves to a new high, then you might consider a short if you get a trap or some good setup, such as the ones I marked here. Anyway, I hope that's clear. Not much else we can say about today. I'm going to wrap it up, and we'll have a short. I'll have a short morning. I usually trade for an hour or two on Friday mornings, and I try to pack up and get out of here and start my weekend early lately. I have a problem with overworking and putting in too many. I'm a workaholic, to be honest with you, and but I'm working on that. So I try to get away more, and I try to get away from the screen as much as I can, especially with my eye situation. If you hadn't been around long, I had a detached retina. Hadn't been quite a year, I don't think. I'm trying to remember when it was. Yeah, it has been a year because it was at Christmas time, not this past Christmas, but the previous Christmas. And I hadn't probably hadn't updated y'all in a while, but I do have a complete recovery on my retina. Last checkup was in November, I think, and I don't have to go back for a year now. But the doctor told me that my retina was completely healed, and it looked really healthy and looked really good. The only problem is I have a small issue that's a direct result of the procedure they use for restoring your retina or repairing your retina, and that is they put a gas bubble in your eye, and that gas bubble expands against your retina and keeps it pushed in place while it heals, and that's the idea behind it. But and it works really well because like I said, I have got a really good report on my retina, which makes me feel great. But the side effect is that gas bubble causes a you'd have cataract. It increases cataracts, and if you've already got small cataracts, it accelerates them greatly. And so now I have a cataract problem, and so I'm still having some vision problems in that eye. I went from a +2 in my right eye, which is my dominant eye, to a -5 now. And they can what it is, and it changes almost every 2 month or to 2 months. And so I have to go back and they change my prescription and give me a little stronger one. But I'm about to the point where they can't correct it much longer with my prescription. It helps. Um, but I'm gonna have to have cataract surgery and have that lens replaced in my eye. And so I'm kind of looking forward to having that done later in the year to kind of get my normal vision back, because I still don't really have normal vision because if I take that contact out, I'm basically almost blind in that eye now. So, but anyway, I didn't mean to get off on that. It might have interested some of you. Some of it may not be what you want to hear when you're logging in to listen to a chart lesson or whatever and learn about price action. But a lot of you asked, so I thought I'd update you. But anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. Hope you had a great week. Hope you have a great weekend. We'll be back again next week to do it all over again. But I'm done for today. This will wrap it up for the week. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.